Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Little Birdie Told You. I'm your host, Kelly Knight.
And I'm your host, Kristen Knight.
And here's our quote for today. Do the thing you fear to do and keep on doing it. That is the quickest and surest way ever yet discovered to conquer fear. Dale Carnegie.
I completely agree with that quote. How do you feel about that quote, Kelly?
I feel like in general, just to actually like overcome your fears, I feel like you have to keep doing it to naturally kind of like overcome it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like people don't understand that. Like when you have a fear, I feel like people are like, oh, well, I'm not going past that. You know, like I fear that. And like they assume like they're going to like conquer that fear by just like being like, oh, I'm gonna avoid it. Like you can't avoid something like that. Like you have to do it in order to like conquer it, you know?
Yeah, like as I said before, when you avoid something and you act like as if it's not there, you're never going to accomplish it.
Yeah.
So when you have a fear, the best way to overcome a fear, as you just said, is to encounter your fear, no matter how scared you are of it, because you're never going to know what it's like to be like without that fear until you actually conquer that fear. Now, speaking of fears, is there something that you want to share, like a fear that you may have?
Okay, so obviously you guys know like we both did online school. Obviously, I mean I still do, but Kristen's graduated now. But I feel like at like the beginning, I feel like when like in general I didn't have that many friends, and I feel like something that was kind of hard was like since we were like always like we like it wasn't that we didn't get to be around people, it was just that since we did online school we weren't always like exactly like around that many kids, and I'm somebody that like I'm very social, so that's what I like to do. And I feel like at one point I started getting scared of being like around kids because like it wasn't that I didn't know like how to like act with them, it was just like in general I was kind of just like I was just scared, because I was like I don't know. And when I first started playing basketball, like I feel like that's something that like obviously helped me through it, but like I will admit like I had to like really like build some confidence to actually start going up to kids. Like I remember Kristen's like nobody's going to come up to you. I was like probably not. But I remember there was like a group of kids that ended up coming up to me, and like I feel like if it wasn't for them, I feel like I would have been like, "Oh gosh, am I not accepted down here?" And I feel like that's not that much of a big deal that people I feel like when you build confidence, you look back at it and you're like, "Whoa, like it didn't even matter." Like nobody's like it feels like you're like on a spotlight, you know what I mean? Like you feel like you're like stood out, like nobody honestly cares. But I feel like it was kind of hard though because I'm a girl, and I feel like some people were like, "Yeah, no." And I mean, playing basketball, that helped me build my confidence. So then finally, like, I actually, like, started to, like, build that confidence to actually, like, go up to kids in other places.
Yeah, and I think a misconception with confidence is people think that it just appears overnight.
Yeah.
It's something that is gradually, like, built.
And something that I feel like I always did was, like, I told Kristen this because I learned it on my own. And I was like, with confidence, I feel like people think it's just, like, boom, like, it's there. And I feel like obviously everybody has like their own confidence. Like everybody has confidence in that one thing. And you should take that one thing and use that, But like in general, I always said I was like fake it till you make it. Like if you're not happy, just fake that you're happy, okay? You only live once, okay? But like in general, I was like fake your confidence. So I would always fake it. People always thought like I feel like when people like first met me or something, I feel like just in general people are like, "Dang, she's confident." Like, obviously now I am, but in order to actually get where I am now, I had to fake it the whole time.
Well, yeah, because you came up.
And then finally, when you actually start, like, faking it, then you're building confidence. Like, it's not like, it's more like, it's like a confidence booster. You know what I mean? And I feel like in general, that's just something that I feel like you have to do.
Well, you came from a place where you were really unconfident and you were insecure in your ability to, like, approach people. And you had this fear of like, are they going to accept me? Are they going to reject me? And I think the best way to go about that is you don't know unless you try.
Yeah.
And I feel like I definitely have been in places where I was like, I used to always fear being rejected by people because I feared, oh, am I going to be accepted in this setting? Am I going to be accepted for who I am? And a lot of the time in my life, I found that I was like completely distinct from other people, and I didn't really have much in common with other people. Like I never really found people that I was like, I can connect with these people. And like I always kept everything very surface level. And I feel like you honestly, in society, you do need to keep things surface level with people because people when they see potential in you, they fear your potential. And I feel like they try to bring you down, and it makes you more fearful of certain situations because you fear you're going to be rejected. You fear, oh, are they going to accept me? And you have all these little internal dialogue, like commanding that you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that, because if I do that, then there's this risk. Yeah, there's a risk in everything you do. There's a risk in everything. Yeah, you might get rejected and your fear might be proven. You know what I'm saying? So, but the best way to know that is to actually try. You could say, I'm scared, I'm not doing that, I'm scared. And I've always been like that. Like, I've always been like, oh, I'm so scared, I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've always had this anxiety in me. And I came to a realization at one point where I was like, you never know unless you try.
And I feel like something that I always followed along with, with that is like, in general, you always regret the things you didn't do rather than things you did do. So I was like, okay, well, if I do this, I'm not going to regret it. Like, looking back at things I didn't do, I always regretted. Like, I'm like, why didn't I just do that? Like, you only live once. Just live in the moment. Like, don't sit there and, like, be like, okay, like, this or that. Like, I mean, obviously, think to an extent, because don't do something stupid. But, like, in general, like, you're going to regret those things you didn't do.
And fundamentally, this comes from our mindset.
Yeah.
So your mindset honestly shifts everything. The moment you realize your mindset and you're like, this is my mindset, this is how I'm reacting to everything in my life, that's when everything's going to shift into your favor, to be honest with you. It's just like that kind of concept of, how people are like, okay, if you believe in affirmations and you like affirm all the time, like I'm confident, I am self-assured, I am, I'm abundant. You have all of these affirmations that you're repeatedly saying, excuse me. What happens is you soon begin to believe all of this, because you have these this constant, it begins with your mindset. The only way you can actually overcome a fear is if you internally you say, I've accomplished this, I'm fine. I get it. I'm confident in my ability to overcome this fear. Because I think if you don't, you're never going to overcome that fear. Like, how did you actually overcome your fear? Did you tell yourself internally?
Me in general, I feel like I was always no, I don't want to do it. But in general, I feel like I just started pushing myself to do it more. Because I was like, if I don't, I feel like sometimes you even get scared of stuff. And I'm always like, don't stop yourself from doing it, because that's not going to help. I feel like people are just they want to stop and they're like, I'm not going past that point. I'm not doing that. When really, honestly, you need to push yourself to the limit and just do it fully. And when you just keep doing that, I feel like it's just then your fear's gone of it. Because you're like, what am I to be fear about? I already did it.
And I think a conflict that we all struggle with is we get used to comfort. We get used to this security.
So you go to that comfort level and being like, eh.
Yeah, imagine doing something your whole entire life that you're completely used to. It comes this there's this comfortability associated with that. And when we're comfortable, we're scared to jump out of our comfort zone, because it's like a foreign territory. We're not doing that. And that's where I think fears come from. Is we're I've never done that before. I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? And I think, honestly, like I said, if you don't try, you're never going to know. At least you can say you tried. Yeah, it might hurt. There might be some things that you might go through. Say, for example, you fear, maybe, I guess, trying out for something. Maybe competing in some sort of competition. This was just a random one that came to me. Maybe you are competing in a competition for something, or maybe you're contemplating on it, okay? I've contemplated on things that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do that, because maybe that's maybe people are going to look at me like, why are you doing that? You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to get to that point of why it doesn't matter what people think of you. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know if I should do this. But then at the same time, I'm like, you don't live forever. Okay. That's it. Everybody knows that. You don't live forever. You know what I'm saying? You don't. At any time.
So when those opportunities come up, you should take advantage of them.
And you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. And at the end of your life, do you want to look back and say, that was something I could have done? That was something I could have said, that at least I tried.
You want to achieve the most things you can in life.
It's almost for example, trying a new food. Say I hand you something that you've never had before. Maybe
Kristen's scared of broccoli.
I'm not scared of broccoli, but maybe you've never had I've had octopus before, and this is actually a true story. And I remember I was scared of it because it's foreign. It's out of my comfort zone. I'm used to eating certain food that we're always presented with. So someone hands me octopus, they're like, here, try it. And I'm like, oh.
I tried it too, though.
Yeah, well, there's a risk associated with it because, I've never had it before. You know what I'm saying? So it's consuming something new, but I won't know what it tastes like. I'm not going to know. Same thing with the fear. I'm not going to know if I might actually succeed here. So it's the same thing. So when I tried it, I was like, maybe it's not my cup of tea, but I'm never going to know. So yeah, I tried it. I faced my fear. I've tried frog too. Don't even get me started on everything yeah. So
do you want to know what else I did?
No. So yeah, so I tried it. Okay. And, you know, I was not my cup of tea. I would not eat it again, but maybe somebody else liked it. But at least I can say in my lifetime that I tried it. And that's how I go about my fears, is I can say, at least I tried. At least I tried. Even if I don't succeed in something and I'm fearful that I'm not going to be successful in it, I can say, at least I tried. You know what I'm saying? I can look back and say, I did that. I mean, maybe it wasn't for me, but I did it. You know what I'm saying with that? But people are going to tell you along the way. They're always going to tell you. They're going to be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Don't do that. You're always going to care about people's opinions. Like, I feel like we come to this point in society, because society's kind of manipulated us to, like, say, like, oh, you know, just follow what everybody else does. And, like, that's a fear that I had. I had a fear that no one was going to accept me as I was. So I kind of always morphed when I went into different environments. I was like, okay, I'm going to be more like this. Like, I had the problem. I think a lot of people, like, if you know me personally, like, I'm very introverted. I'm very, like, I would be, like, considered shy in public. People would be like, oh, she's shy. So when I was younger, a lot of people were like, she's shy. You know what I'm saying? And as a child, like, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know what that means. You know what I'm saying? So I just kind of morphed into this shy person. So when I talked, I had this fear of speaking. You know why? Because society manipulated me into believing that I wasn't allowed to speak, because if I did, it would be considered like abnormal. So what I did is I would always just remain quiet. I would say, I'm not going to say anything. I'm shy, as they said, you know, quote unquote shy. And I struggled with that for a while, because anywhere I went, people always made a remark about it. And it wasn't like I was scared to speak. Like, I could talk, but, like, I feared what I said was going to be taken in a way that was going to be like, oh, like, that was weird. Why'd she say that? So I always kind of just kept everything to myself. And people don't understand how hard that is for a while, because it becomes to a point where you're like, people, like, I've had people tell me, like, I would start actually feeling comfortable to speak. They're like, the only reason why you knew how to speak was because of me. And I was like, oh, like, you know, it destroys your confidence, and it made me more fearful. The only way I actually understood that is I was like, I came across something, and I was like, people fear your potential. People fear you. So you're not the one actually fearing that. They're going to fear your potential, and they're going to degrade you so you don't do what they tell you to do. They're going to tell you, oh, you're shy because we don't want to hear you speak. We don't want to know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, like, you know, people just want to, like, suppress you because they don't want to see you do better than them. And I don't mean this in a way like there's always going to be people better than you. There's going to be people more successful than you. There's going to be people more prettier than you. The only thing that I'm going to tell you is be self-assured. Be able to sit there and say, I'm confident in who I am. Because the moment you know who you are, that's when things are just going to happen more easily for you. Yeah. You know what I mean by that? Because the moment you're like, I know who I am when I sit here, and when I walk into a room, I know exactly who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm Kelly Knight. I know exactly who I am. You don't need to tell me who I am. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I have to offer. You know what I'm saying? And the moment you come to that point and say, I'm confident, I don't fear anything that you're telling me. Like, people tell us all the time. People try to tell you all the time, like, they're like, oh, you know, that hairstyle kind of looks odd on you. You're ugly. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't take on this. Like, people tell me all the time. They try to tell me which direction to go. And I mean this, like, in a way of, like, you know, maybe career path. They're like, oh, you should do this. And I'm like, do you know me? Like, do you know me?
I feel like people judge so much in general, though. Like, I remember, I'm not pointing anybody out here, but, like, I remember I went somewhere with, like, some friends, and it was kind of like a gathering thing where they were, like, splitting up the girls and the boys, kind of, for, like, somebody, like, they were gonna go play volleyball and then, like, basketball, you know? And I love playing basketball. I'm not somebody that really wants to play volleyball, obviously, and I had really long nails on that day, okay? So I couldn't really play volleyball. Okay, like, basketball is different. And I remember the lady, because the lady was, like, in charge for the girls, and then the guy was, like, in charge for, like, the boys. And, you know, I stood over by the boys because I wanted to play basketball. So I'm like, I don't care what she says. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And so she's like, oh, sweetie, you need to come over here. The girls are going to play volleyball. I'm like, nah, I'm good over here. Like, I'm fine. I'm going to be playing basketball. And I remember, like, and the way she gave me this look was like, oh my gosh, like, are you serious? Like, and I remember then we all ended up playing volleyball, but that night I ended up breaking all of my nails.
And let me tell you something, the more confident you become in yourself, the more you're going to realize people hate you, and the more they criticize you, and the more they judge you. Because people hate confidence. And it's the truth. You're going to be like, oh, people don't hate confidence. Now, let me ask you something.
Like, if you're a confident person, you, like, always tend to see, like, I see people, like, always trying to cut me down, and, like, it doesn't faze me. I don't care anymore. Like, maybe me in the past I cared, but me now, I don't care at all. And I feel like people, when they see that confident person, you, like, almost stand out like a spotlight because everybody can notice it, right?
Exactly.
And, like, especially, like, me, when I walk in places, I feel like people notice it. And in general, people like to point those people out and be like, oh, I'm going to try to, like, cut them down for something. because like they assume they
Exactly.
can, but then they can't. And it's like, okay, obviously if you're cutting me down, you're insecure about something, or you're just insecure in general.
And as I was about to say, well, I'll get to that again. But when you say, for example, you're really insecure about going into public, you're insecure that people are going to judge you based on something maybe you're wearing or just how you look, or just in general, you just have that fear of going in public and being perceived because you're like, I just don't want to know how people perceive me. And I think we all kind of like have that a little bit minimally. And I know how that feels. And we don't realize is when people do make fun of you, if people point something out about you and they're like, oh, like, like, oh, like, why do you, I don't know, this one, dye your hair? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And they point out certain things about you, like, oh, why? Like, Kelli loves to wear cowboy boots in public. If you've seen Kelli in public, she wears cowboy boots. And I respect Kelli 100% for that, because you know why? Because no one else does that. Like, I rarely see people do that.
Okay, fun quick stories. We went to the store. And I remember this like lady looked down and she gave me the most nastiest look for wearing them.
Yeah.
It was funny though.
Like, I've heard people actually say, like, oh my goodness, I would never let my daughter wear that. Well, you know what? You know what? Don't let your daughter wear that. I don't care what you let your daughter wear. She's my sister.
You know, the way I look at it is like, I mean, I'm not over here dressing like inappropriate or anything.
No.
Like in general, I feel like when parents like, I mean, I'm not saying anything. Your parents obviously have the right to say stuff. But in general, if you're not wearing something that's inappropriate, I feel like in general, that's up to you. Like, that's you.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you
I
have the
agree.
right to have your own style. And if somebody's going to judge you for it, then...
The way I look at it is allow people to criticize you, because if anyone judges you and anyone points out, if anyone ever points out anything about you, if they point out your makeup, if they point out your hair and they say something judgmental towards it, not even physically, if they just say like, oh, you're too focused on this, you're too focused on that, you do this all the time, they point out anything. For example, like they say, oh, you're too focused on school, you're too focused on, your work, you do this. Why do you do that? Why do you spend Friday nights alone? Like, why do you do that? You know what? Obviously, they're looking at you and there's something they're insecure about, because when we look at people...
Because they want to be you.
Think about when you're out in public. Do you look at people that are just like you would consider normal? No, you look at people when you see something unique, something that no one else does. It's like Kelli said, it's like a spotlight. You look at it and you're like, what is that?
They're different.
So when you see somebody who you would say like you can tell when somebody's confident when they walk in a room. They don't even have to say they're confident. And that's what I want to point out about confidence is if somebody has to prove to you they're confident and say I'm confident in myself. Like right now I'm telling you this because we're trying to express this to you. But like in general, those people that are like, I'm like so pretty, I'm so confident, like everybody loves me. Of course it's good to like affirm that to yourself. But when you have to prove it to other people, you're not really confident, because let me tell you, confidence speaks for itself. It's silent. That's what I always didn't understand is when I was quiet, when I was considered quiet, I'm still quiet and I'm not changing that. And I realized that's who I am, but I'm also allowed to speak. I can be both. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I can have this duality. And I feel like people were like, when I started to speak, they would like, their eyes would like they would become bold because they'd be like, whoa, like she's speaking. But I realized I was like, I like to listen, but I also like to speak. And I thought I was like confidence, because people always tell me, they're like, you're not confident because you're shy. And I'm like, so shyness is the opposite of confidence. But then I dug deeper and I understood. I was like, actually, confidence speaks for itself. You can be shy. So let me tell the introverts out there, or the people, if you've been called shy in your life, even if you've been called extroverted, you could be anything. Confidence comes from yourself. Deep down in your core, you're going to know you're confident because you're going to be able to say, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I'm going to prove it to myself. The only person you have to prove anything to is yourself. Impress yourself. When you go places, dress for yourself. Say, I'm going to wear, be like Kelli, I'm going to wear whatever I want to wear.
Like, people have always told me, like, I mean, in general, like, I'm kind of, like, I dress very, like, I wouldn't say fancy, but I'm always somebody that, like, I'm always dressed up for something, like, in general.
But that's
like,
just how you are.
Exactly. Like, I feel like boys have always asked me, though, like, when I go to the basketball court or something, like, I'm not somebody that's, like, wearing, like, something sporty all the time. Like, I'm always, like, I'm still dressed up, and it's kind of funny. And, like, I always have my nails done and stuff, and, like, I wear a little bit of makeup or whatever. But, like, in general, people are always like, why do you do that? Like, why do you do that? I'm like, well, I can live for myself. I don't care.
Yeah, do what you want.
And the way I look at it is you never know when it's going to be your last day. And why just be like, oh, it's just another day, I'm just going to put on sweatpants and, like, a t-shirt. Like, don't.
Exactly. Life is too short to be living through other people.
Exactly.
Do not live for other people. Live for yourself.
Like, don't follow, like, I feel like it's so annoying when I see, like, I'm not pointing out girls or guys, but it's annoying when you see girls, like, all, like, I don't even know, in general, they all act the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see, like, those group of girls that they all wear, like, the same clothes, the same shoes and stuff. And then you see it with guys, too. Like, it's nice to see, like, somebody that, like, stands out in general, and you're like, dang, they have, like, a cool style.
They have this
and they're not
distinction.
copying everybody else.
Exactly.
Like, it's annoying when you see, like, I swear, I mean, I'm not trying to say, but it's like those pick-me girls and the pick-me boys. Like, they always wear the same stuff as each other, and it's like a group that they're always like, oh, well, you can't be in this group because you're wearing something different.
Yeah, and honestly, what's so, like, what I don't like about that is it's like that's a fear. People don't realize that, but it doesn't show confidence when you act like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not willing to step out of your comfort zone to be yourself and do your own thing, it shows a lack of confidence. But what I was pointing out is you don't have to dress like so extravagant. Like, that doesn't prove confidence. What proves confidence is you being able to walk in the room as you are and say, I'm fine how I am. Like, I don't need to prove to you, I don't need to prove to you, and I don't need to prove to you who I am. Like, I know who I am. And I feel like the only way to get there is, like I said, change your mindset. Change your mindset. Like, it's like, just click it into it and say, like, say, why do I care what other people think? Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to ask you right now, do you care what other people think of you? I actually want you to ask yourself that question and think about it for a second. Like, do you actually care? When you leave the house, do you care what people think of you? Do you care what your friends think of you? Do you care what, maybe the person you like thinks about you? Do you care about the person you're with, maybe in a relationship? All the relationships in your life, even like in general, do you care what people think about you? And yeah, okay, I'm going to say that, yes, it's good to have common courtesy and be kind to people. Like, I'm not saying go out here and be like, oh, I don't care what you think of me. Like, don't act like that. Just don't care about people's perceptions of you. Do what makes you happy. And when I say that, I mean that, like, quite literally. What you're passionate about shouldn't have to interfere with what other people say, because people have told me there's things that I'm extremely passionate about, and I've already told people I will not give this up for anything, because I will not let things that give me happiness come in the way of other people. Mm-hmm. Like, I will not let people come in the way of that at all, because I know exactly what I want. And at the end of the day, I don't know where you're going to be. I don't. I know who's going to be there for me at the end of the day, and that's going to be me and myself. And I know people come at me about this and they're like, what about God? Okay, what about God? Yeah, God, of course. But you want me to tell you something about that? God's not just going to hand things to you. It's not that easy, okay? Let's be real. God's going to challenge you because he's going to want you to go through these trials and tribulations to understand and to learn. You have to learn confidence. You have to go in from a place from being unconfident to be confident. God's not just going to say, here's confidence. I'm going to give you confidence.
He's going to have to go through things in order to build that confidence.
He's going to give you opportunities to be confident. Say you get invited to a party or you get invited somewhere. He's going to say, okay, you said you want confidence, so I'm going to give you an opportunity. Be yourself here. And if you don't, he's going to keep giving it to you again, and you're never going to know what it's like to be confident. And I'm not saying if you don't believe in God or anything, confidence still stems from the same place. Just be yourself. Walk in a room and know exactly who you are, because at the end of the day, those people that are criticizing you, those people that you might fear, or that situation you might fear, in fact, if it's not anything to do with socializing or anything, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because impress yourself and know your value. You know what I'm saying? Because value is determined by you. It's not determined by other people. And other people will try to place a value on you like they do, especially as a child. I feel like it starts when we're younger, because people are constantly telling us, they're trying to reinforce this thing in our mind. Like, oh, this is who you are. You're this, you're that. Don't forget that.
And in general, I feel like ever since, like, I don't know, I feel like in general, people always like, oh yeah, like when you wake up, when you wake up in the morning and you're getting ready for the day or whatever, and you actually look nice in general, people are always like, oh yeah, you're just trying to look nice because you're trying to look nice for guys, or like in general with guys, like people like assume if a guy looks nice, they're like, what is going on? If a guy looks nice, girls like assume, oh yeah, he's just trying to look nice for a girl. Like in general, why can't you just look nice?
Exactly. And then do you notice more effort you put into yourself, more people are like, oh, you're being selfish.
Exactly.
Like, you're giving up time, like, away from me for yourself. You want me to tell you something? I'm going to be selfish. I don't care if you tell me I'm entitled. If I'm selfish, I'm going to stand in my beliefs and believe them and be myself and be selfish, because you know what? That's what makes me happy. I care about people, but I care about people to a certain extent. Unless you prove to me that you care about me. You know what I'm saying? Because the only person that's ever been there for me through all the struggles and everything, like I said, don't come out at me with the God thing. Of course, God, okay? But is me. You know what I'm saying? I know what I've been through. You don't know what I've been through. I'm not saying at Kelli, but like I mean this like and
Well,
when
she's
people
saying
come at you,
that.
no, but like it's true. But even Kelli, like Kelli's been through her own internal struggles. I've been through my own internal struggles, and you're the only person at the end of the day that's going to truly understand that. So why are you letting other people tell you who you are and try to tell you, oh, you're this? Like keep that in mind. Walk in a room and be like, I'm me. You're not gonna put me in the corner and tell me who I am. When you're at school, if you guys go to whoever goes to school, if you walk in and you're fearful of like, oh, I'm scared what they're gonna think of me. Like I don't talk to them because they're like those people like we don't talk to. Like I don't really know. But
I
like,
don't
you know
even
what I mean?
know who made those.
Yeah, like
things.
people.
Like, people was like, oh yeah, they're the cool kids. You know what? I don't care.
Like, you
To
know
be
when
honest,
you-
the way I look at it is like those popular kids. Like I hate popular kids that are like that because honestly, to be honest, they're popular because they're insecure.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Kelly's
just
really
gonna be
calling them
honest
out
though,
now,
because
y'all.
you got those kids that are like, oh, like I wish I was them. Well, you know what? Prove them wrong.
Don't wish you were anybody else.
Yeah,
be
exactly,
yourself.
be yourself.
Prove people wrong. Because the people that are going to criticize you the most fear your potential. I don't care who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to say, oh, I'm going to look like them. I'm going to do this. They look pretty. It works for them. I'm going to do the same. No, you're not. Don't do that. Do your own thing. Because pave your own pathway, okay? It's honestly, okay, so it's like kind of like this. You know when you, we're going to go back to my little analogies and talk about my little metaphors. So I always bring that into this situation. Think of a tiger, okay? Think of a tiger. Think of a tiger or think of like a lion or a bear. When you look at them, you're automatically intimidated, right? Like not a lot of people would approach that, right?
I would.
Maybe you would. But you look at that and you have a fear of that animal. Like, don't tell me you're going to go over there and like cuddle with that animal. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't tell me you're going to do that. If you're going to do that, then you're pretty brave. But you're not going to go over there and do
I
that.
want to.
And you know why you're not going to do that? Because you fear its potential. You know what that animal is capable of. We know what a lion and a tiger and a bear is capable of. You know what I'm saying? We do. They can cause a lot of harm. Steph, why do you always giggle at me when I say this stuff?
Because it's funny.
I'm being serious. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with people, though. They might, like, from a distance, you might look at them, but people are going to tell you, like, don't go near them. Don't do this. Don't do that. Do what you want to do. I mean, don't be reckless, but do what you want to do. Why are you giggling at me?
It's too funny.
It's not funny. Anytime I bring these little metaphors on, y'all start making fun of
Because
me.
you have me, like, thinking of, like, gorillas and stuff.
Guys, I'm trying to give you a visual. For those who are visual learners and like when I say this stuff, like, they might understand where I'm coming from. And I try to, like, actually express it a little bit better. But like I said, people are going to fear your potential. People are going to try to criticize you and bring you down. Just don't listen to them. And people are like, well, how do you not listen to them? How do you not? Just think, well, what makes you happy?
Just look at them and say, I'm
I
a
don't
bear.
care.
I'm a lion.
Start showing up as who you want to be. Like, think of the best version of yourself, that person that you like aspire to be, and say, that's who I'm going to show up as. That's exactly how I'm going to feel, because the more you show up as that, the more of that mindset that you create in your mind, that's exactly what's going to happen, because your mindset is the foundation for everything, for the outcomes in your life completely. Because when you have a mindset that's like, I'm confident, I'm strong, you don't have to for people who are like, oh, I want to be like more physically attractive, if that's what your goal is, if that's what you want, just start saying, I am physically attractive. I'm not only physically attractive, but I'm mentally attractive. I'm attractive in all aspects of my life, and think that mentally. And you're going to put that energy out there, and people are going to look at you, and you're just going to radiate this confidence. Don't even like those people that act like they if they degrade you. Confident people, one thing I'm going to tell you, they don't degrade other people. They will not put you down. So if somebody's trying to tell you, I'm confident, you want to be like me, well, you got to change this about yourself, this and this and this. I'm not telling you to change. I'm telling you to stay who you are, but I'm telling you to improve yourself mentally.
Like, don't listen to other people's opinions.
Yeah, I'm not trying to tell you, oh, you can't wear what you wear, you can't do this, you can't be involved in the things they're involved in. Do what you want, do what makes you happy, and makes you distinct from everyone else. Because that's gonna show confidence, it's gonna show self-assurance, and that's just gonna show self-respect and self-value. Don't let other people like tell you what your value is, because people are gonna tell you that all the time. It's just like kind of like buying coffee. Kelly's gonna get mad at me. I'm doing another analogy. So say, when you buy coffee, you can go to tons of different places to buy coffee, right? It's different. It's priced differently everywhere. You go to Starbucks, you could go to Dunkin'. It's not the same price, right? It's different prices. It's just a standard coffee, right? If I'm going to go get a standard coffee from anywhere, and they're basically dictating the value. They're like, this is how much this coffee's worth here. This is how much is worth here. Don't let people tell you what your value. Like, actually just go make the coffee at home and say, I know my value. A lot of people like to throw that around and say like, all these different places like give a value to this little materialistic object, but like take that and say, I know my value. I don't need external forces to tell me my value. You know what I'm saying? Like, think of yourself highly. Never put yourself down. And when you do start putting yourself down, because let me tell you, there's going to be those days where you're going to be like, I don't have any respect for myself, or there's just maybe you just like, something triggered something. Just say, what do I have that no one else has? And remember that you can have that self-assurance, because one thing about confidence is nobody knows if it's real or fake. And if you've heard that before, good. But nobody knows if it's real or fake. I can't tell you when I look at you, but like I said, you know when someone's confident because they're humble about it. They know they're confident. When they walk in a room, they know exactly who they are. They don't need to prove it to other people. And they don't have to sit there and be like, I'm going to degrade you. I'm going to degrade you. I'm going to tell you who you are and you are. They're not going to tell you who you are. You're just going to be yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing with you. Like, that's why I get mad when people even, like, tell Kelly, like, they're like, oh, she wears this, she does that. Because I'm, like, her sister, so I'm going to be protective over her. And I'm like, well, you know what? At least she had the guts to get up today and wear what she wore outside of the house. You didn't. And when people tell me the things I say, they're like, oh, that's entitled. Well, you know what? At least I had the guts to say it. You know what I'm saying? Because someone else didn't. And I'm not going to conform to what other people want me to be. I'm going to be exactly who I am. I'm going to show up exactly who I'm in. That's what everyone else should do. Just show up who you are. Who cares if they don't like you? And another thing is, I'm going to bring up relationships. I didn't really want to bring up relationships in this podcast episode, but I am going to be honest. If you have to question if someone likes you, who cares? Who cares if they like you? So if you're like, oh, I kind of like this person's like, oh, you're like, oh, I think they kind of like me. But I'm like, I don't know. Or if you have to change yourself, like we always say, do not change yourself for somebody, because if they truly like you, they're going to like you for you. And as I always say that, but be confident in yourself to say, I don't even care if they like me. If they don't like me, it's fine.
You always see girls, I mean, this is probably the same thing with guys.
Yeah.
You always see girls always like when they're like, with like their friends or something, and like the guy they like comes around or whatever, they're like, oh, stop, I can't laugh. Like, I can't giggle. Like, be yourself. Like, for me, honestly, sometimes I'm like, honestly, I think I laugh too much and stuff when I'm just like, I can't. Like, me, I'm just myself. I don't really care.
Another
like, if you
thing
don't like me, whatever.
Is like, don't like sit there and like fish for a compliment. Like, know who you are. You don't need validation from other people. You should know when you wake up, know yourself, say I'm perfect the way I am. I'm beautiful. I'm gorgeous. Tell yourself that. And people are like, that's kind of delusional. Don't tell yourself that you're beautiful and stuff in the mirror. Do what you need to do to make yourself feel confident. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, look at yourself and smile at yourself in the mirror. Like, I don't care if you find this funny. I don't. But I'm being honest, because if it works for you, it does. And a lot of people are going to be like, they're not like, you don't have to be super confident.
We already know she looks in the mirror and smiles at herself because she's saying it.
But you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. You have to be confident in today's day. You have to be. You have to just ignore other people's opinions, because it doesn't matter what you do. People are going to criticize it either way. You know, if you wear too much makeup, oh, you wear too much makeup. And they're like, oh, like you wear, no, even if you wear a little bit, they're like, oh, you wear too much makeup. You don't wear makeup at all. Oh, you don't try. Either way on the spectrum, you're going to get judged. So just do your own thing. That's what I'm telling you right now. Do your own thing. Who cares? Honestly, though, who cares?
Yeah, it's true.
It's like every day somebody's telling me, like, I'm getting tired of it, to be honest. Everybody's like, oh, you're this, you're that. No. I'm Kristen.